Why, hello. I'm guessing today you're wanting to learn how to tune your guitar by ear, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Now, there's a couple things that I want you to do before we begin this process. One, I want you to use your tuner to make sure your guitar is already in tune before we begin. So if you need to take a moment to pause the video and make sure, this is important because I've had a lot of students that learn this process and then they're not sure where they're at, and their guitar string is either really low or really high, and I've even seen people snap their strings because they're like, I'm not sure, and they keep tightening it and it goes pop, and we don't want to do that. First thing that we're going to learn is we're going to learn how to tell whether or not two notes are the same in what's called a unison, so the very same frequency. And then we're going to learn how to tell whether or not two notes are the same when it comes to an octave. So an octave is like when you start at the bottom of a scale, the musical alphabet, and you go up and that letter recurs, right? So we're 8 tones, thus an octave above or below the other tone. After that, we're going to use those two pieces of information to tune our guitar in the best way in terms of not compounding error and things like that. Every guitar is going to have slight intonation issues, so it's best to tune these things by ear as opposed to using your snark, because then as you get more advanced at it, and I'm going to show you a couple of advanced techniques at the end to make sure things are more in tune for whatever key you're playing in. As you get more advanced at it, you'll be able to tune to your guitar's quirks. Now, this is a Guild guitar. It's a pretty expensive guitar, and even it has a couple little intonation issues here and there that I have to figure out depending on what key I play in. So trust me, guys, every guitar has some sort of intonation problem. Okay, so let's start with how do we know whether or not a note is the same note. So I'm going to use the 5th fret of my D string here, which is the note G, and I'm going to play it against my open G. Now those two notes sound the same, right? And if you went ahead and tuned your guitar with whatever tuner before we start this, I want you to play those two notes together, one after another, and let them ring together, and just listen to how open that sounds, right? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my G string down just a little bit, and I'm going to play them together. Now I know they're not the same. If you listen very closely, you'll hear a wobble, whoa, 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 between the two. And if I go even further down, it's like, oh, that's not the same. And as I bring it back up, oops. Now the wobble's gone. So listening for that wobble is really important. So what I want you to do as you are practicing tuning by ear, so this is something you actually have to practice and get good at. It's not like you're going to watch this video and, oh, I can tune by ear. Look, Mom. No, you are going to need to practice this. So I want you to use specifically your open G and the 5th fret of the D, and I want you to bring your G down and back up, down and back up, and I want you to listen to that wobble appear and disappear. Now, something tricky is you're going to have to pluck with this hand and tune with this hand and make sure that they stay ringing so that you can hear the difference of the two notes, okay? Now, do this 3-4 times a day just with those two notes and get used to that, but make sure that you're still kind of tuning off of your tuner when you get to your actual practice, because, you know, it takes a little while to get good at this, guys. And I want you to be able to play your actual music in tune. So next we're going to learn how to listen to the octave. And the octave works essentially the same. So I'm going to play, now those are not the exact same note, but those are an octave. My open D and the 3rd fret of my B, which is also a D. But there's still an openness to it. And there's no wobble. Now if I take my B string down just a little bit, that wobble's back. Same thing, guys and gals. I bring it back up, the wobble's gone. So I want you to do the same thing here. Is tune your guitar up with your tuner, and then play your open D in the 3rd fret of the B, and just practice taking it out of tune and bringing it back into tune. Let me grab some coffee here. Okay, so how do we actually tune our guitar by ear? Now, there's a lot of ways that people do this, and I'm going to go with what I think is the most straightforward way and the least error-prone way. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to get your A string in tune. So typically I will use a tuning fork, but you can also use a cell phone app, use your Snark, whatever. Just make sure that your A is in tune. That's the very first thing. And then we're going to tune every other string off of the A string. All of the strings need to be tuned off of one reference string. That way we don't compound the error. So if I start to tune these two together and then these two together, and let's say I make one small mistake here, well, that's going to be a big mistake once we get here, because each time the error adds up and it becomes compounded. So let's just go through which notes we want to tune on each string. So in order to tune the low E string, we're going to check the 5th fret of that string against the A. And we're going to make sure that that unison has no wobble. And mine doesn't have any wobble, so that's good. Next, the open D is going to be the 5th fret of the A against the open D. No wobble, so we're good. Next, we're going to tune the G, which is their 2nd fret of the G is an A. Now that's an octave, that's not a unison, so we're going to check that for the wobble. Then next is our B. We're going to use the 2nd fret of the A and the open B. No wobble. And next is the E. So a couple ways we can go about this. We can either use the 5th fret of the E and the open A, which works, but that's 2 octaves, and that might introduce a little error. I like to use the 7th fret of the A, which is E, and check that that has no wobble, right? Now all of your strings are tuned off of the A. That way if you make a mistake on any given string, you can just tune it against the A, and that mistake is basically corralled off into its own thing, and it didn't create further mistakes in the other strings. Okay, so let's talk about some more advanced tips. Number 1, always tune up to the note. If you accidentally go over the note, you need to come back under it and go back up to it. That way, there's no slack left in your tuning gears, because if you tune down to the note, there's going to be a little slack in there, and it isn't going to be long before you're back out of tune. Another thing that I find helpful, and I'm going to use the key of C. That chord sounds very good, but sometimes I find that I need to tune to a chord within a key to make it a little bit better. So sometimes if I tune with like a Snark or a tuner, I'll find that my C and G, which is the interval of a 5th, are a little bit off. And to me, that becomes pretty jarring, especially now that I'm playing and singing. You're trying to match your voice to your guitar, and if your guitar has intonation issues in the key that you're in, that's going to cause problems. So if I take my G out a little bit, that's what an out of tune 5th sounds like, and it's just ugh. So an in tune 5th is going to have this very open sound, and I will go between my octave and my 5th from that string just to make sure that when I'm playing that chord, we are nice and in tune. So I hope this helps you guys. Sit down, be patient with yourself. Take 5 to 10 minutes a day to practice tuning, so taking things out of tune and putting them back into tune with your ear. At the beginning, tune with your Snark or whatever. At the end, retune your guitar and then get to practice so that you can play some music. But it's really nice to be able to tune your guitar by ear. It's something that we should all be able to do, because who knows, when you don't have a tuner, You don't want to be out of luck, and your guitar is actually better off and better in tune by using your ear as opposed to just some machine that tells you whether you're on or you're off. Also, for anybody that wants online lessons, rossthemusicteacher.com. There are limited slots available. I went ahead and started teaching again, which has been a lot of fun. So shout out to my student Britton, who needed this video, and we'll be making some more here in the future. Happy practice, guys.